Hi! Hi again! Hi! Look who's back! Look who's back. So, revision time, because exams are approaching, as we said before. So if you haven't started revising, why haven't you started revising?
Why haven't you?
Right, so inspector calls today, because that's another text that both our students do, or at our schools. So we want to go through this. So tell me, like we did last time, what do you enjoy about inspector calls?
I like the fact that the inspector as a character just gets all of the other characters to really think about their actions and how smaller things that you think are irrelevant actually do have a massive impact on other people. I think that's the that's the main thing I like about this play.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah.
For me, yeah, it's just the idea of this inspector is able to come into this family that think they're so, you know, high and mighty, and and he can just make them challenge their ideas. And I think that is what we should have more of today, where you have those people challenging people's ideas.
Yeah.
But then also the idea of it highlights at the end that not everyone can change. And I think that message in itself shows that, you know, I don't know, in the sense of that message, the idea that it just highlights certain groups and certain classes and certain ways that society works, that hopefully make people question their own society a bit more and how that works.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
I agree.
So who would you say is the character that you dislike the most? You said with Macbeth last time who we liked the most. Who do we dislike the most?
Mrs. Berlin. Can't
I
stand her.
agree.
Now I know in the last video I'm all for the female villain, but Mrs. Berlin, like, she irritates me because she just doesn't accept any responsibility.
No, and she's mean.
Yeah,
just mean.
If that was my mother, I'd get emancipated. Goodbye. No.
Yeah, no,
I just don't like her.
From the moment he says in the stage directions at the beginning, like, she's a cold woman.
Yeah.
You know, every other kind of character, like, I don't know, like, just the word cold just shows how cold she does become later on. And it's just the idea she takes no responsibility. She doesn't care even afterwards. It's all still about Eric and, you know, the fact that he's drinking, completely forgetting she had something to do with the fact this girl killed herself. Yeah. But she's still worried about her own family and how she's seen and how the inspector's talking to her. Rather than, you know, being a bit more kind of... Mr. Burnham was a little bit nervous to begin with the inspector being there. But she was very much like, sorry.
Come in my house.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll come in your house and question you.
Yeah.
I just don't like
I wasn't a fan. But I kind of dislike Gerald. I think, because even though he has those moments where he's like, oh yes, you know, I'm so upset. I think the fact that he still went away to find an excuse or reason why they didn't do anything wrong. And I think rather than just owning up to the fact that he's been a rubbish fiance and, you know, an adulterer, you would think he would just...
It just highlights the social class at the time though, doesn't it? Because he's the highest class out of all of them. And it just goes to show that he genuinely thinks he can get out of anything.
And it's different with him, Mr. Berlin, because Mr. Berlin just says point blank, I'm not taking any responsibility. But with Gerald, it's like he pretended to take responsibility, but then he didn't. And I think maybe that can reflect maybe more upper classes where, you know, especially when you think about it at the time, was it just a case of they could do what they wanted and they weren't seen as criminals because of their class, but as soon as someone from the working class would do it, then that would mean that they would be a criminal. And you see what I mean? Yeah. So it's the idea that, okay, yes, I just had an affair, but he still doesn't take any ownership of it.
It's like one rule for them and another rule for the other classes. Yeah. I don't like him either, Gerald.
No, not a fan. Right, now we're going to go through some key quotes. So we have decided to think about the main themes in Inspector Calls and what quote we think best reflects that theme. So you can have a range of quotes you could use in your exam. See that? How nice are we?
We're so
nice. Right, so Charlene, Miss Shaw Scribbles, what is your theme? What is your key quote for the theme of responsibility?
If we're responsible for everything, that would be very awkward.
That's a very awkward quote.
Yeah, and that just sums up Mr. Burling, I think, in terms of whether he's going to take responsibility for what he's done. If he didn't fire Easy Smith or Daisy Renton at the start of the play, or at the start, none of this would have happened, because it all snowballs from that initial event. And it just, as I said, sums up his view on it. And I think it comes from the fact that he's this kind of upper middle class, and he's trying to kind of climb the social ladder. So he thinks that he shouldn't be responsible for what he's done. He tries to involve everyone else in that, and actually, you know, not every character thinks that. Mrs. Burling does, but not every character thinks that they have no part to play in it. So I think that's a key quote for responsibility, because it sums up his view on it, and as an extension of that, it sums up the kind of upper classes, the higher classes view on it as well. So
that's
it's not
how
just
they
him,
saw
it's
it.
all of them.
Yeah. And it kind of reflects, as Priestley was trying to say, that unless you do take the responsibility, nothing will change. But the upper class didn't really want it to change, because it was fine for them.
Yeah.
So that's why they were probably felt okay without having to take responsibility for anything.
Yeah.
And I suppose they didn't, because they didn't see themselves as doing anything wrong. Do you know what I mean? So it's the idea, if you're not seeing yourself doing anything wrong, then you're not doing anything wrong. So I think that's his kind of... It would be awkward for him if he took responsibility. And maybe that's why he doesn't want to do it, because he doesn't want to feel awkward with himself.
Yeah, so he's trying to involve everyone else and being like, you're going to feel awkward as well, so let's just pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah, I agree. Right, mine is from Eric, and it's from later on in the play, where he goes, and I say, the girl's dead, and we all helped kill her, and that's what matters. You know, I think this coming right near the end of the play as well shows us, it just highlights the fact that the younger generation can take responsibility of what they've done, but you know, this is when he's arguing with his parents as well. They know the Inspector isn't real, and you know, even after that, you know, the other characters are like, oh great, he's not real, so we've got off scot-free. But he's still like, well no, we still helped kill her, and that's what matters. And I think that last bit, and that what matters, is interesting, because no matter how you want to think, even though he wasn't real, what you did, you still did that. Mr. Burling still fired her. Sheila still got her fired from the job. Gerald still had an affair. Eric still got her pregnant and left her alone, and Miss Burling refused to help her. So, you know, he might not have been real, but they still did what they did, and that's what matters, I think. We is used here, but it's different this time being said from Eric, because actually they need to take responsibility as a collective. Yeah, so Mr. Burling's saying, let's not take responsibility, we will all do this together. But then Eric, I was about to say Gerald, Eric, is saying, no, we need to take responsibility. So you've got that clash of young versus old as well. Yeah, the conflict between the two. And these two, the quotes are quite good, because that's Mr. Burling and Mrs. Eric. And throughout the whole play, they have conflict anyway. Yeah. You know, and I think Mr. Burling always favours Gerald because he thinks like him, and they, you know, see their upper class, middle class views. Yeah. Whereas Eric has always been having conflict with his father throughout the play. So it's interesting how they both talk about we, but they won't understand, I suppose, we from each other's points of view. Yes. Like that. So that's responsibility. Yeah. Right, so now we're going to look at theme of gender. Gender. Let's hear it. Okay, so I've got Mr. Burling as per. I've picked the bit at the start of the play where the inspector first starts to question him about Eva Smith and her working at the factory. He kind of disregards it and says, we've several hundred young women there and they keep changing. So that's a good one. Yeah, I think that kind of highlights the gender gap there, because he's the male boss and he can hire hundreds of women and they keep changing. So he's basically stressing the fact that the women he employ are young, and because you've got that adjective, more terminology, because you've got that adjective there, it's stressing the fact that, you know, they're young, they're naive, he can get away with paying them less and they will still work. And if they don't, he can hire plenty more. So it kind of highlights the time period, really, the fact that they can hire
loads of women, and as a male kind of boss, he can do what he wants, and if
They're
anyone...
cheap labour, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's what it is, and I think they can take advantage of that fact.
Yeah, he's just taking advantage of them, and
just the lack of respect he has for them.
Yeah, it's you can just imagine it, can't you? Like, oh, you know, they keep changing.
Yeah.
He kind of brushes it off, like, yeah, I can hire hundreds of women. It just
they're not individual. They're just workers to him.
Because he acts like he doesn't know who it is. He's like, oh, there's hundreds of women. I can hire hundreds more. It's very dismissive of the gender, because
which is even current today, and the idea that even in workplaces, women that still happens to women, where they're kind of invisible or, you know, not respected.
Yeah, so I think it really kind of reinforces the idea that the men had the power and the women didn't, because he's the boss, he's got his name, his company, and then he can't even bring himself to recognise who it is, because he hires so many people, and he doesn't make a point of getting to know them, because it doesn't matter. He can just hire several more.
And it's interesting because he has a daughter, so you would think that he would be a little bit more, you know, I don't know, just a little bit nicer to women. But because I suppose Sheila is part of the middle class, she will never have to deal with the same issues as Eva Smith.
No.
So maybe that's why it's not even down to gender as much as why he treats her differently. It's the class aspect as well.
Yeah.
Just being a woman and being working class or lower class already put you in a very, very bad position. Yeah.
Yeah. What's your one?
It is from Gerald. Gerald, the man who had the affair. So when the inspector is interrogating him, he says, so you had an affair with her, you kept her as a mistress. And he says, I suppose it was inevitable. She was young and pretty and warm-hearted.
Inevitable, you know.
Exactly, like it was bound to happen because she's pretty and I'm a young, handsome, attractive chap.
Yeah,
so of course,
why wouldn't we?
Of course we go into having an affair. And, you know, it's just that in itself, the fact you say it's inevitable, you are engaged to marry Sheila. Why would it be inevitable? So again, it's like the excuses he's making of having the affair because she was young and pretty and warm-hearted. And it was nothing to do with her personality. She's young and pretty and, okay, warm-hearted is, but young and pretty come first. So it seems like those are the qualities that came before her warm-heartedness. And I think that reflects how women were seen.
Yeah.
In the sense that they were either there to do work for them for cheap labour, or they were there for sexual reasons and gains. Yeah. And, you know, Gerald will never have a serious relationship with Eva because she's not part of his class, so that definitely never happened. And obviously he's married to Sheila. And so it's a bit just telling of, as I said before, this is maybe why I don't like him as much, because it is just dismissive. He's not taking blame. It was inevitable that I was going to have an affair, so let's just basically forget it and just get on with it. You know. So yeah, it's just the idea that he focuses, and they all focus on her being pretty. Like Mr. Berlin says it at the beginning, Sheila says she was pretty, and it's always about women being pretty, and that's the things that kind of make you, you know, noticeable because you were pretty. But does it make it better that she was pretty and committed suicide than her being ugly and committing suicide?
Yeah. And it kind of stresses, like, they all mention that she's pretty, but then as soon as, you know, she starts to stand up for herself and try and get higher wages, boom, gone.
Yeah. 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 And then as well, it's that Sheila, was the jealousy of her being pretty that did that again. Yeah. So even within the genders themselves, there's still conflict. And that the class comes into that, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Sheila didn't like the fact that she was working class and pretty, and then laughed at her about the dress kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah. And then I think this adds to the idea when Eric later on in the play takes advantage of Eva and, you know, the situation and his power over her. It's just the idea that they're only there to work or for sexual reasons. And yeah.
That's not the case. There's more to us, people.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh, we're back.
I just realised I was like,
heard the look. Right, we're now doing the theme of like age. So age in Inspector Calls. So what's your key quotes, Charlene?
Okay, so I've got another Mr. Burling one. And he says to his son, Eric, "Why, you hysterical young fool." Now, he's using fool because he's kind of patronising him and saying because you're not older, you don't know what you're talking about. He's obviously stressing the fact that he's young, he's younger than him, and he calls him hysterical. Now, actually, Mr. Burling's the one being hysterical. He's the one that's kind of lost his temper and he's almost on the verge of kind of physical violence towards his son. So it just proves that he thinks he can throw his weight about because he's older and he's the father figure. And he's really showing himself up here. Like, the whole play, he's been quite reserved almost and making out that he's this kind of upper-class gentleman and blah, 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 blah. But here he really loses his temper and he kind of shows his true colours, and it's just an embodiment of him thinking, because I'm older, because I'm the father, my opinion matters and yours doesn't. And actually, Eric does have an opinion. He is very involved in this whole situation.
And he's grown throughout the play.
And he's grown, yeah.
So to have that judgment.
Yeah, for him to kind of dismiss it and say hysterical young fool just shows that the older generation think that because they're older, they have a right to kind of manipulate people and tell them what to do and stuff like that. And as I said, he's the one that's been hysterical. He's the one that's almost on the verge of being physical towards his son. So he's the fool. So it's quite ironic.
And he's fought the end of the play because he's the one that doesn't realise the errors of his ways, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yes, Wally. Right, I've picked the quote from Sheila earlier on in the play, right at the beginning, when she's given the ring from Gerald, and she says, "Look, mummy, isn't it a beauty?"
Look, mummy.
So it's all the mummy idea. You know, we associate mummy with being a child, and so it kind of reflects the earlier Sheila, who was very much the pretty girl who was very excited by life, as said about her in Stage Directions.
Yeah.
And I think by calling her mummy shows that when you're younger, sometimes you see your parents differently to how you do when you get older.
And I think they're the be all and end all, don't you?
Yeah, and you know, you don't see them in a negative light. So in some ways, she was still her mummy at the beginning of the play. She was still that, you know, person she looked up to and did anything wrong. And, you know, so that may be why she felt more like a child, in a sense, to call her mummy. But by the end of the play, she refers to her as mother. She goes, "Oh, mother." So it shows that actually, throughout the course of this play, and only this hour and a half that the inspector's been there, Sheila's actually grown up as a character. And now she's calling her mother because actually her views of her mother has changed throughout. She doesn't see her as that woman anymore. She sees her as this cold woman that we were told about. And so actually the shield's down, the rose-tinted glasses are off, and now she sees her mother for what she is. And that's why she goes from the childlike mummy to mother. So it shows the idea of age, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Right, so that was our little video revision for Inspector Calls. Just some top tips. Just remember the following things. So, first thing, make sure you make a plan before you start.
Please plan.
We said this last time, but we're saying it again. Make a plan, people. Make a plan.
It's important.
It is, in life and in this.
Yeah.
So make a plan before you start. Make sure you have a range of quotes. How many should they have, do you think?
I think you've got to have about 4 to 5. And again, like I said in the last video, just make sure they're quotes that link to character and theme, because you've got less to learn that way.
Yeah, I agree. And then the quotes you do pick that you're revising from, just explode the quotes, you know, pick out the word classes and the connotations and the effect it has. So when you go in the exam, you already have them ready to go.
Yeah. Don't forget your context.
Don't forget AO3, people. It's 6 marks, but it's still very important. You can go down like a whole level if you don't get the context in. So always make sure, you know, actually the structure, when you have your introduction, see that as your way to get the context links in there.
Definitely.
I think that's definitely just a way to make sure it's there. Get it in throughout, but just get it in an introduction as well.
That's good. It makes it worth writing, because a lot of students kind of think, oh, I don't get marks for my introduction, so I'm not going to do one. Well, if you put context in, you get marks for it. So just be smart with it. It shows that you can do it.
Yes.
You write an essay.
Yeah. Make sure you know all your AOs. So you're doing AO1 and AO2. Go over those, revise them, go to our last video if you need to. And you get marked for SPAG on this as well. AO4.
4 marks.
So remember, don't forget that either. And anything else?
Just give yourself a little bit of, I know this is the exam that you've got to tackle your poetry and your unseen as well, but give yourself some time to read back through, because those 4 spag marks, even though they're not a lot, again, it could be the difference between a grade.
Definitely.
So don't forget.
And so that's it. If you have any questions, leave them below.
Yeah.
And catch Shaw Scribbles on her social media. Plug it, go on, plug it, go
Shaw
on.
_Scribbles, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything worldwide. Worldwide, people. And the book's coming out this year, so make sure you look for
There you go. Remember, writer, fall in line, out. Right. Anyways, see you soon. Thank you for tuning in.
Bye.